Commander Jake Morrison sat in his command chair watching the endless stars through the observation deck of Deep Space Station Alpha 7. The station floated at the very edge of human space, 12 light-years from Earth. Jake had been running this monitoring post for 3 years now, listening for any signs of alien life or hostile activity. Most days brought nothing but cosmic background radiation and the occasional meteor shower. The alarm changed everything. Red lights flashed across him, the command center as the long-range sensors detected an incoming transmission. Jake jumped from his chair and moved to the communications console where Dr. Lisa Carter was already working. Lisa specialized in mathematics and linguistics, ready for the day when humanity might receive its first message from another species. "What do we have, Lisa?" Jake asked, watching the strange patterns scroll across her screen. "This is not natural, Commander," Lisa replied, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "The signal is definitely artificial. It is coming from the Kepler 442 system, about 1/200 light-years away. That is far beyond anything we have explored." Jake looked at the data streaming in. The signal was weak but clearly structured. It contained mathematical sequences that any intelligent species would recognize, prime numbers, the value of pi, basic geometric shapes. But there was something else mixed in with the universal language. "Commander, look at this." Lisa pointed to a section of the decoded message. "These are coordinates, star positions. And, this part here it keeps repeating. I think it might be a distress call." Over the next 6 hours, Lisa worked to decode more of the message. Jake contacted Earth Command but kept the discovery classified for now. As more data came through, the picture became clearer and more disturbing. "They are asking for help," Lisa finally announced. "The mathematical proofs establish intelligence, then the coordinates show their location. The repeated sections translate to something like enemy approaching or great danger coming. There are references to something called the Harvester Swarm." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it came with a plea for help from a species facing extinction. The protocols were clear. Any confirmed alien contact triggered Protocol Omega, established after decades of speculation about first contact scenarios. Jake opened the secure channel to Earth Command. Admiral Patricia Wells appeared on the screen 8 minutes later, the delay caused by the distance to Earth. Her stern face showed no surprise at Jake's report. She had been preparing for this moment her entire career. "Commander Morrison, you are to maintain complete security on this discovery. We are implementing Protocol Omega immediately," Admiral Wells said. "I am dispatching the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet to your location. Captain Ryan Hayes will take command of the mission." Jake knew about the 3rd Fleet. It was humanity's most powerful deep space force, built for long-range exploration and combat. 12 massive battlecruisers, each carrying enough firepower to level a city. 40 destroyers for escort duty and reconnaissance. Support ships loaded with Marines, engineers, and specialists. The entire fleet carried 50,000 people, making it the largest military force ever assembled by humanity. "Admiral, that is our entire strategic reserve," Jake said carefully. "Are we certain about committing so much to an unknown situation?" "Commander, if this alien species is facing a threat they cannot handle, what does that say about the enemy they face?" Admiral Wells replied. "If these harvesters can defeat a civilization, advanced enough for interstellar communication, they might not stop with one system. This could be a threat to all intelligent life, including humanity." 3 days later, the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet arrived at Station Alpha 7. Jake watched through the observation windows as ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace. The UES Vengeance led the formation, its massive hull bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. Captain Ryan Hayes was already famous for his aggressive tactics and unwillingness to back down from any fight. Jake boarded the Vengeance for the mission briefing. Captain Hayes stood before a holographic display showing the Kepler 442 system. The alien signal continued to transmit, growing weaker each day. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to make the longest military jump in human history," Captain Hayes announced to his senior staff. "Our destination is 1,200 light-years away. We do not know what we will find there. We do not know if we can help. But we do know that someone is calling for aid." and humanity has never ignored a cry for help. Chief Engineer Carlos Reeves raised his hand. Captain, our ships were designed for operations within 500 light-years of Earth. The power requirements for such a long jump will strain our reactors. We will have limited fuel for combat operations once we arrive. Then we make every shot count, Chief. Captain Hayes replied. We go in hard and fast. If these harvesters are as dangerous as the alien message suggests, hesitation will get us all killed. Dr. Peter Nash, the fleet's xenobiologist, studied the latest signal analysis. Captain, we must consider that we might be walking into a trap. What if this distress call is bait to lure other species into an ambush? Lisa Carter, who had transferred to the Vengeance, shook her head. Dr. Nash, I have been studying this signal for a week. The mathematical proofs are too complex and the emotional undertones too consistent. This is genuine fear and desperation, not deception. Captain Hayes made his decision. We leave in 6 hours. All ships will jump together to maintain formation. If we arrive in the middle of a battle, we need to be ready to fight immediately. This is first contact with an alien species, people. Everything we do out there represents all of humanity. The fleet spent those final hours in preparation. Marines checked their weapons and armor. Engineers ran diagnostics on every system. Pilots prepared their fighters for combat in unknown conditions. As the fleet prepared for the jump to hyperspace, Jake Morrison remained on Station Alpha 7, continuing to monitor the alien signal. The message was growing weaker, but it had not stopped. Somewhere across the galaxy, an alien civilization was making its last stand against an enemy they could not defeat alone. The Third Expeditionary Fleet vanished into hyperspace, carrying humanity's answer to that desperate call for help. Jake could only wait and hope that when they emerged at Kepler 442, they would find someone left to save. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system and immediately found themselves in hell. Captain Ryan Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. The entire system was at war. Massive explosions lit up space as strange organic ships with crystalline hulls attacked what looked like cities built into asteroids. The defending vessels moved with impossible grace, firing beams of energy that bent and twisted through space itself. My God, whispered Lieutenant Commander Nina Brooks from her position at the communications console. Captain, I am reading at least 1,000 ships in combat. The energy signatures are off the charts. Chief Engineer Carlos Reeves ran his hands over the sensor controls. Captain, those organic ships, they are not using any technology I recognize. The hulls appear to be grown rather than built, and the way they move, it is like they are alive. Captain, Hayes watched as one of the defending cities took a direct hit from multiple organic vessels. The asteroid city cracked apart, spilling atmosphere and debris into space. Thousands of lights went dark as the civilization inside died. Nina, can you establish communication with anyone down there? Captain Hayes asked. I am trying, Captain, but there are so many different signal types. Wait, I am getting something on the mathematical frequencies we used to decode the original distress call. The main screen flickered and suddenly showed an alien face. The creature had large, dark eyes and translucent skin that seemed to shimmer with inner light. When it spoke, the translation software worked frantically to convert the words into English. Unknown vessels, you must flee immediately. The harvesters consume all life. Your species is not ready for this war, the alien said, its voice filled with exhaustion and despair. Captain Hayes stepped forward. I am Captain Ryan Hayes of the human Third Expeditionary Fleet. We received your distress call and came to help. What are these harvesters? The alien's large eyes widened with surprise. You came from outside this system to help us. That is impossible. No species travels such distances for strangers. The creature paused, studying the human ships on its sensors. I am Ambassador Zethkri of the Ethereal Collective. We have been fighting the harvesters for 3 centuries. Tell us about the enemy, Captain Hayes demanded. How do we fight them, Zethkri's expression grew even more desperate. The harvesters do not simply destroy, Captain Hayes. They consume consciousness itself. They turn entire civilizations into empty shells, keeping the bodies alive but stealing the minds. We have lost 17 worlds to them. Our weapons, advanced as they are, cannot match their adaptive biology. Dr. Peter Nash leaned over the communications panel. Ambassador Zethkri, how many species have you contacted for help? We sent distress calls to 47 different star systems, Dr. Nash. Yours is the only one that responded. The others either lack the technology for such long-distance travel or are too afraid to face the harvesters. Zethkri looked directly at Captain Hayes. Your people must be very brave or very foolish to come so far into danger. Maybe both, Captain Hayes replied grimly. What is the tactical situation? The display changed to show the battle from a strategic perspective. The organic harvester ships moved in swarms, coordinating their attacks with frightening precision. Their weapons seemed to drain energy from the defending ships, weakening shields and disabling systems before moving in for the kill. The harvesters adapt to any weapon we use against them, Zethkri explained. Our plasma cannons work for a few engagements, then they develop immunity. Our quantum disruptors last longer, but eventually they learn to absorb that energy as well. Nothing we have tried provides a permanent solution. Lieutenant Commander Brooks studied the tactical data. Captain, the ethereal ships are beautiful, but they seem designed for precision warfare. Single shots carefully aimed. The harvesters overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Captain Hayes nodded. Human military doctrine was very different from what they were seeing. Ambassador Zethkri, have you tried kinetic weapons? Simple projectiles moving at high velocity. Kinetic weapons. Zethkri repeated the words as if they were foreign. You mean throwing rocks at them? Captain Hayes, our civilization abandoned such primitive methods millennia ago. Sometimes primitive works, Captain Hayes said. Nina, open a channel to all ships, battle stations. The human fleet spread out into attack formation. Unlike the elegant curves of the ethereal vessels, human ships were built for one purpose: maximum firepower delivery. Magnetic railguns extended from their hulls. Nuclear torpedo tubes opened like hungry mouths. Plasma cannons charged with deadly energy. Captain, the harvesters have noticed us, called out Tactical Officer Sam Wilson. 3 swarm groups are moving to intercept. Estimated time to weapons range, 4 minutes. Dr. Nash monitored the alien communications. Captain, the ethereal collective is warning us to stay back. They say their most advanced weapons have failed against these creatures. Then it is time they learned how deathworlders fight, Captain Hayes replied. The term had come from their first analysis of the distress call. Apparently the aliens considered Earth a death world because of its harsh environment and violent evolution. The first harvester swarm reached weapons range. The organic ships fired their energy-draining weapons at the human fleet, expecting the same result they had achieved against the ethereal vessels. Instead, the human ships shrugged off the attack. Their shields were designed differently, using overlapping fields and redundant systems that could not be easily drained. All ships open fire, Captain Hayes ordered. Space lit up with human weapons fire. Railgun slugs moving at a significant fraction of light speed punched through harvester hulls like they were made of paper. Nuclear torpedoes exploded in brilliant flashes, their primitive fusion reactions overwhelming the organic ship's defenses. Plasma beams carved through entire formations of enemy vessels. The harvesters had never faced anything like it. Their adaptive biology was useless against simple kinetic energy. Nuclear fusion was too basic for them to absorb or redirect. The human weapons were crude, inelegant, and absolutely devastating. Captain, the harvester formation is breaking up, Wilson reported with excitement. They are retreating toward the inner system. On the communication screen, Ambassador Zethkri stared in amazement. How is this possible? Your weapons are so simple, so direct. There is nothing for them to adapt to. Sometimes the best solution is the simplest one, Captain Hayes replied. Ambassador, we need to coordinate our attacks. Your precision weapons combined with our firepower could turn this battle around. For the first time in hours, hope appeared in Zethkri's large eyes. Captain Hayes, perhaps there is a chance after all. The Harvesters have never faced a species like yours before. The combined human and ethereal fleet pressed deeper into the Kepler 442 system, but Captain Hayes quickly realized that winning individual battles would not be enough. The Harvesters had been consuming this civilization for months, and their numbers seemed endless. Captain, we have destroyed over 200 Harvester vessels, but our sensors show thousands more throughout the system, reported Tactical Officer Sam Wilson. They are protecting something in the inner planets. Ambassador Zethkri appeared on the communication screen, his translucent features showing both gratitude and concern. Captain Hayes, your tactics have given us hope, but I must warn you about Harvester biology. When we destroy their ships, they do not simply die, they adapt and rebuild. Major Helen Price, the fleet's senior Marine commander, studied the tactical display. Captain, we need to take this fight to them directly. Standoff weapons can only do so much against an enemy that learns from every attack. What are you suggesting, Major? Captain Hayes asked. Boarding action, sir. We put Marines directly onto their ships and take them apart from the inside. It is dangerous, but it gives them less time to adapt to our methods. Dr. Peter Nash looked alarmed. Major Price, we have no idea what the environment inside those organic ships might be like. The atmosphere could be toxic. The gravity could be crushing or worse. Then we find out the hard way, Major Price replied. Captain, my Marines have been training for hostile environment operations their entire careers. This is what we do. Captain Hayes made his decision. Major, select your best people. We capture one of the smaller Harvester vessels for study. But I want full biological containment protocols. We cannot risk infection or contamination. The young target was a damaged Harvester ship drifting near the wreckage of an ethereal defense station. The organic vessel looked like a massive insect with crystalline wings, its hull pulsing with faint bioluminescent patterns. Sergeant Danny Cooper led the first boarding party. 12 Marines in full environmental suits used cutting tools to burn through the Harvester hull. The material felt wrong under their hands, too warm and slightly soft, like cutting through living tissue. Breach complete. Cooper reported over the communication system. Interior atmosphere is breathable but thick with organic compounds. Gravity is about half of Earth normal. The Marines moved through corridors that seemed grown rather than built. The walls curved in impossible ways, covered with what looked like nerve clusters and sensory organs. Bioluminescent patches provided dim, pulsing light that made everything seem alive and hostile. This place gives me the creeps, muttered Private Kate Johnson, her weapon trained on every shadow. It feels like we are inside some giant animal. Stay focused, Cooper ordered. Remember, these things have been killing entire civilizations. Do not let your guard down for a second. They found the ship's control center deep inside the organic maze. It was less a bridge than a brain, with pulsing neural connections running along every surface. In the center sat something that might once have been an intelligent being, but now it was connected to the ship by dozens of organic cables. Command, we found something, Cooper reported. There is a creature here, but it looks like it has been merged with the ship's systems. I think this is what happens to the species they capture. The merged creature suddenly opened what might have been eyes and looked directly at Cooper. When it spoke, the words came from speakers throughout the ship, translated by the same absorption process that had stolen its original consciousness. You are new, it said in a voice filled with ancient sadness. The Harvesters will add your distinctiveness to their collective. Your species will serve them as we have served. Not today, Cooper replied, and signaled his team to place the explosive charges they had brought. We came here to end this, not join it. But the merged creature was not alone. The ship's immune system activated, sending waves of smaller organisms to attack the Marines. The humans fought back with automatic weapons and flamethrowers, filling the organic corridors with fire and destruction. Meanwhile, Commander Susan Blake coordinated the larger battle from the Vengeance Bridge. She worked with ethereal tactician Morden to identify weak points in the harvester formations. The aliens were impressed by human willingness to take casualties that would horrify other species. Commander Blake, your Marines fight with incredible courage, Morden said through the translation system. But they accept losses that would cause any ethereal unit to withdraw. How do they maintain such determination? Because we know what happens if we fail, Blake replied, watching as another boarding team fought their way through a harvester bioship. We have studied history, Morden. When an enemy threatens to destroy everything you care about, retreat is not an option. The boarding actions proved devastatingly effective. While the harvesters could adapt to energy weapons and defensive strategies, they could not adapt fast enough to humans with explosives and flamethrowers tearing through their ships from the inside. Sergeant Cooper's team fought their way back to their entry point as the explosive charges counted down. The merged creatures' final words followed them through the dying ship. You cannot save everyone. The Queen will consume your minds as she has consumed ours. We will see about that, Cooper muttered, sealing the breach just as the charges detonated. The harvester ship broke apart in a chain of internal explosions, its organic hull unable to contain the damage. But as it died, it transmitted something to the rest of the swarm. Information, tactical data. The location and capabilities of the human fleet. Captain, the enemy formations are changing, Wilson reported. They are adapting their tactics based on what they learned from our boarding actions. Captain Hayes nodded grimly. Then we adapt. Faster. Major Price, I want boarding teams on 6 more ships simultaneously. We hit them so hard and so fast they do not have time to learn. Over the next several hours, the human Marines carved a path of destruction through the harvester swarm. Their tactics were brutal by galactic standards, but brutally effective. Where other species had tried to outthink the enemy, humans simply overwhelmed them with firepower and aggression. Ambassador Zethkree watched the battle with a mixture of admiration and horror. Captain Hayes, your species fights like no other we have encountered. You accept losses that would cripple our will to continue, and yet your people keep fighting harder. Because that is what it takes, Captain Hayes replied. Morden mentioned something about a queen. What did he mean? Zethkree's expression grew dark. Intelligence we gathered over 3 centuries suggests that all harvester swarms are controlled by a central entity, a queen creature that coordinates their attacks and processes the consciousness they steal. But no one has ever found her location. Until now, Captain Hayes said, studying the data they had retrieved from the destroyed harvester ships. Major Price, start preparing your best people for a long-range mission. I think we are about to meet the real enemy. The data recovered from destroyed harvester ships painted a terrifying picture. Deep in the outer system, hidden beyond the gas giant Kepler 442c, lay something massive. The organic vessel was the size of a small moon, protected by thousands of harvester ships and surrounded by what looked like a graveyard of consumed civilizations. That has to be the Queen, Dr. Peter Nash said, studying the long-range sensor data. The biosignatures are off the charts. Whatever is inside that thing, it is coordinating the entire swarm. Captain Hayes stood before the holographic display showing the Queen's location. The distance was enormous, and the defensive formations looked impenetrable. A direct assault would be suicide for any normal fleet. We cannot fight our way through those numbers, Commander Susan Blake observed. Even with our tactical advantages, there are simply too many of them. Major Tom Stewart, who had replaced Major Price after she was wounded in the boarding actions, studied the tactical situation with the cold eye of a professional soldier. Captain, we do not need to fight through them. We just need to get a small team to the Queen herself. What are you thinking, Major? Captain Hayes asked. A stealth insertion using captured harvester technology, Stewart replied. We take one of their damaged bioships, repair it enough to fly, and use it to get close to the Queen. Once inside, we plant enough explosives to destroy the entire organism. Dr. Ashley Martinez, the fleet's chief medical officer, looked concerned. Major, we have no idea what kind of defenses the Queen might have inside her body. The entire structure could be one massive immune system designed to destroy intruders. Then we better move fast, Stewart replied. Captain, I volunteer to lead the mission. Give me 20 of our best people, and we will end this war. Ambassador, Zethkri appeared on the communication screen, his large eyes filled with desperate hope. Captain Hayes, our long-range sensors confirm what your people have discovered. That entity has been consuming consciousness for over 1,000 years. The minds of entire species are trapped inside her neural network. Trapped how? Captain Hayes asked. The harvesters do not simply kill, Captain. They preserve consciousness in a digital form, storing the minds of their victims like data files. Billions of beings from hundreds of species exist inside the Queen, as nothing more than information. Zethkri paused, his expression growing even more grave. If your people can find a way to disrupt her systems, you might be able to free those trapped minds. Major Stewart selected his team carefully. Marines, engineers, and specialists who had proven themselves in the boarding actions against smaller, harvester ships. Engineer Kelly Johnson volunteered despite knowing the odds of survival were essentially zero. Major, I have been working with the captured bioship technology, Johnson reported. I can jury-rig the propulsion systems to get us to the Queen, but the repairs will not hold for a return trip. This is a one-way mission. Understood, Stewart replied. Anyone who wants to back out can do so now with no shame. Not one person stepped forward. The captured harvester vessel had been severely damaged in the fighting, its organic hull scarred and partially collapsed. But Kelly Johnson and her engineering team managed to restore basic life support and propulsion. The ship looked dead from the outside, just another piece of wreckage drifting through the battlefield. Remember, once we are inside the Queen, we stay in constant communication, Stewart briefed his team as they prepared to launch. The moment we lose contact with each other, the mission becomes exponentially more dangerous. The bioship drifted through the harvester defensive formations, without challenge. To their sensors, it appeared to be another damaged vessel returning to the Queen for repairs and reintegration. The human team crouched in the cargo hold, breathing recycled air and trying not to think about the organic walls pulsing around them. As they approached the Queen, the true scale of the entity became apparent. The creature was not just large, it was a living world. Thousands of smaller organisms moved across its surface like antibodies in a bloodstream. Docking bays opened like mouths to receive damaged ships. "My God," whispered Sergeant Danny Cooper, who had volunteered for the mission despite his injuries from the earlier boarding action. "How do we even begin to fight something this big?" "One step at a time," Stewart replied as their ship was drawn into one of the docking bays. "Johnson, how long do we have?" "The reactor modifications will hold for maybe 6 hours, Major. After that, we either complete the mission or we die trying." The inside of the Queen was a nightmare of organic architecture. Corridors stretched in all directions, pulsing with bioluminescent nerve clusters. The walls were covered with what looked like sensory organs, all watching the human intruders as they moved deeper into the creature. But they were not alone. As the team advanced, they encountered the preserved consciousness of destroyed civilizations. Holographic projections of alien beings appeared in the corridors, begging the humans to turn back. "Please, you must not proceed," pleaded the ghost, of what had once been a proud warrior from some long-dead species. "The Queen will add your minds to her collection. Your species will be consumed as ours was consumed." "We are not here to be consumed," Stewart replied, pushing past the desperate projection. "We are here to end this." More consciousness entities appeared, dozens of different species all trying to stop the humans from reaching the Queen's core. They had been trapped for centuries, their minds preserved but their hope long dead. The idea that anyone could threaten their captor seemed impossible to them. Dr. Martinez studied the neural pathways running through the walls. "Major, I think these preserved minds are connected to the Queen's immune system. She is using their knowledge and memories to defend herself." "Then we give them something new to think about," Stewart said, signaling his team to prepare their explosives. "Johnson, can you disrupt the neural network?" "I can try, Major, but it will require overloading our ship's reactor. The feedback pulse should scramble the Queen's control systems, but it will also kill us all." Stewart looked at his team. Every face showed the same determination he felt. They had come too far and seen too much to turn back now. "Do it," he ordered. As Johnson began the reactor overload sequence, the Queen's defenses activated. The preserved minds of 1,000 species tried to stop the humans, but their desperate attacks lacked the brutal efficiency the team had learned fighting through the harvester swarms. The reactor reached critical levels just as Stewart's team placed the final explosive charges around the Queen's central neural cluster. The feedback pulse tore through the organic computer network, disrupting centuries of accumulated consciousness. For the first time in a millennium, the trapped minds were free. And in that moment of liberation, they chose to help rather than hinder the humans who had freed them. "Now we know why your species survived their death world," said the voice of an ancient civilization as the Queen's defenses crumbled. "You do not fight for conquest or glory. You fight for others even when those others are already dead." The explosions began deep inside the Queen's body as Stewart's team was consumed by the reactor overload. But their sacrifice triggered a cascade failure that no amount of biological adaptation could stop. The Queen's death screams echoed across the entire harvester swarm as 1,000 years of accumulated consciousness finally found peace. The Queen's death sent shockwaves through every harvester ship in the system. Without her central consciousness to coordinate their actions, the bioships began to behave erratically. Some attacked each other, others simply drifted powerlessly through space, and many started to break apart as their organic systems failed. Captain Hayes watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as the massive enemy fleet that had seemed invincible just hours before dissolved into chaos. The sacrifice of Major Stewart and his team had accomplished what 3 centuries of advanced alien warfare could not. "Captain, we are receiving communications from harvester ships throughout the system," reported Lieutenant Commander Nina Brooks with amazement in her voice. "They are not from the harvesters themselves. The preserved consciousness entities are taking control of the bioships." On the main screen, dozens of different alien faces appeared. Species that had been consumed by the harvesters decades or centuries ago, their minds finally free after being trapped in digital hell. They spoke in languages the translation systems could barely process, but their message was clear: gratitude. "People of Earth," said one of the liberated minds, speaking through a bioship that had once been its prison, "you have given us something we thought lost forever: freedom. The Queen stored our consciousness as data, but you have shown us that death with purpose is better than existence without hope." Ambassador Zethkri's image flickered with tears of relief. "Captain Hayes, our sensors show the Queen's body breaking apart. The neural networks that controlled the entire Harvester Collective are shutting down permanently. After 1,000 years, the threat is finally ended. But the aftermath brought new challenges. Thousands of Harvester bioships were scattered throughout the system, most now controlled by the liberated consciousness of dead civilizations. Many were damaged beyond repair, and the organic entities that had powered them were dying without the Queen's central control." Dr. Peter Nash coordinated with teams throughout the fleet to provide medical aid to survivors. "Captain, we are finding living beings inside some of the bioships. Species that were recently captured, their bodies kept alive even after their minds were stolen. We can save some of them." The rescue operations continued for weeks. Human medical teams worked alongside ethereal physicians to treat survivors from dozens of different species. Many had been trapped for months or years, kept alive by harvester biotechnology while their consciousness was slowly drained away. Commander Susan Blake established temporary refugee camps on asteroids throughout the system, providing shelter and basic necessities for the survivors. The logistics were overwhelming, but the human fleet adapted with the same determination they had shown in combat. "Captain, we are receiving long-range communications from across the galaxy," Nina Brooks reported one morning. "Word of our victory has spread to other star systems. We are being contacted by species we have never heard of, all requesting alliance with humanity." The first formal delegation arrived 2 months after the Queen's death. Ambassador Claire Thompson, who had been sent from Earth specifically for diplomatic missions, established humanity's first official embassy on the ethereal homeworld. The ceremony was attended by representatives from 17 different species, all seeking friendship with the Deathworlders, who had accomplished the impossible. Captain Hayes, promoted to admiral after the successful mission, found himself commanding humanity's first permanent deep space fleet. The UES Liberator, built with a combination of human engineering and ethereal technology, served as flagship for ongoing exploration and defense missions. Admiral, the Galactic Council has officially recognized humanity as a major spacefaring civilization, Claire Thompson reported during one of their regular communications. They are requesting our military advisors to help develop new defense strategies against similar threats. The cultural exchange proved beneficial for both sides. Ethereal medical technology could heal injuries and diseases that human medicine could not touch. In return, human military doctrine provided the galaxy with new approaches to warfare that emphasized adaptability and aggressive tactics over elegant precision. Dr. Lisa Carter, the linguist who had first decoded the alien distress call, established the consciousness archives on a space station orbiting the former Queen's location. The preserved minds of extinct civilizations chose to remain in digital form, becoming teachers and historians for the living species of the galaxy. The irony is profound, one of the archived minds explained to Dr. Carter. The harvesters intended to steal our knowledge for their own purposes, but instead, they preserved us to help future generations avoid the same fate. The ethereal collective shared their advanced propulsion technology, allowing human ships to travel faster and farther than ever before. In exchange, they requested detailed information about human training methods and tactical thinking. Your species approaches problems differently than any other we have encountered, explained Morden, the ethereal tactician who had worked closely with human forces. Where we see complexity, you find simplicity. Where we seek elegance, you choose effectiveness. This perspective is invaluable, but perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy viewed warfare itself. The traditional approach of advanced civilizations had been to develop increasingly sophisticated weapons and defenses, leading to a kind of technological arms race that the harvesters had learned to exploit. Human tactics, crude and direct by galactic standards, could not be easily adapted to or overcome. The concept became known as the Terran Protocols and was studied by military academies throughout known space. Admiral Hayes often stood on the observation deck of the Liberator, looking out at stars that no human had seen before his fleet's arrival in the Kepler 442 system. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of dangers that required constant vigilance. "Admiral, we are receiving another distress call," his communications officer reported one day. "This one is coming from the Vega system. Unknown hostile forces are attacking civilian shipping." Hayes smiled grimly. It seemed the galaxy had learned that when civilizations were threatened, there was one species they could count on to answer. "The call. Set course for Vega," he ordered, "maximum speed." The UES Liberator and her escort fleet turned toward their new destination, carrying humanity's promise to defend those who could not defend themselves. The Deathworlders had found their place among the stars, not as conquerors or explorers, but as the guardians who stood between civilization and the darkness that threatened to consume it. In the end, humanity's greatest strength had not been their advanced technology or superior numbers. It had been their simple willingness to fight for others, even strangers across the galaxy, even when victory seemed impossible. That willingness had earned them allies, friends, and a permanent place in the community of intelligent species. Signal had summoned the Deathworlder fleet, and the galaxy would never be the same.